So I'm doing a little painting on a small cradled panel, and it's a cradled birch panel that's been gessoed, and I have a little drawing of a dog sleeping on a bed, and I have some basic ideas about the background and how I'm going to approach the bed, but things could change. So the first thing I'm going to do is just paint the dog, and so I have some yellow ochre, some burnt sienna, some burnt umber, black, and white on my palette. And what I'm using for palette paper is, because I hate just buying the palette paper that you buy and just throw it out is just a waste of money as far as I'm concerned. So I use old magazine pages, and that's what I have on my table. So that's why it looks like I'm painting on top of an ad, because I am. So I use old magazine pages for all kinds of things, collage and other things. But then I'll, tear out pages and I just mix my paint on them. And then when I'm done with them, sometimes they're really cool and I'll save them and I'll use them for collage, or I'll just toss them out. So here I'm just mixing the colors and I'm putting on very thin layers. And I'm mixing them with a little bit of matte medium, because the matte medium helps with flow, and it also thins the paint out just a hair. And so what I'm doing is I'm making a dog, he's going to be brown and white, and I'm using the different colors to show the differences, and where the legs attach and stuff. So like the head, I've made a lighter color, and then there's going to be some darker places, and same thing with his paws and stuff. You'll be able to tell, places will be in shadow, will be a little bit darker, and that's why I'm mixing the different tones or the different shades of the brown, and I'm adding mostly burnt umber into those colors of brown, and I'm mixing the base color with burnt sienna and yellow ochre. So I like a really kind of a rich variety of colors, even when I'm painting leaves and things like that. I like to have like several different colors of green or whatever it is. So I do tend to mix a lot of the colors that I'm working with. And so even though they're all in the same family, you'll see a variety of different hues. And it keeps it interesting, and you'll be able to read the painting better. When we're using the matte medium is almost exactly like the paint, only it has no pigment. So it's the same composition as the paint itself, so it blends seamlessly. And we can use the matte medium for a lot of different things. And one of the things I do like to do with it is to use it while I'm painting, because it does add flow without really extending the open time. So my painting is still going to dry fairly quickly, just as it would if I was just painting with a regular paint. Now, there are flow extenders that speed up the acrylic drying time, and I'm not looking for that in this case. This is a really tiny painting. It's more like a study for me. So a lot of times I'll explore an idea on something this size, and then if I decide I want to do a larger one, I might, do a bigger one on a bigger canvas. So I'm just kind of playing here, because this is a really tiny painting. It's probably not going to take me very long at all to do this. And, I'm just having a good time playing with my regular paint and seeing what I can come up with in a short period of time. So I'm not trying to, take too long to do it. But matte medium can also be used to apply and attach collage. It can be used almost like a glue. So you would put it underneath and on top of a piece of paper or fabric, and it will hold that in place. And even though it's not actually glue, it will do that. And what I like about using it in that kind of a application is that it's not sticky like glue would be, and it dries really matte. And when you use something like Mod Podge, which is actually glue, you're gonna a lot of times end up with something that sticks together. So if you're using it to do like an art journal or something that has pages, it will later on stick together. Where if you're going to use matte medium, it's not going to happen like that. It won't have that same quality as like a Mod Podge or a glue would have. And that's why I like it better. I really had to play with the dog's nose, so I was mixing black with white and making my own gray rather than using the gray out of the tube, which is something I do kind of a lot. I'll mix my own. And so, because sometimes dogs really do have a pretty black nose, so I made my own gray tone, and then went back in and added in some of the darker tones for the nostrils and some of the other things. And I don't use a lot of black normally. But sometimes when I'm doing eyes, I will put just a little bit of black. Because there's some places where you really can't get away with the darkest darks. You really need to actually use black. I will sometimes get away with the absolute darkest neutral if I can get away with it, but once in a while I'll actually pull black out, and it's very rare that I do that. But a lot of times eyes are the place that you'll see me using it. I will create shades with black, but I very rarely actually use black straight out of the tube. It's very harsh. And sometimes if you just use it alone, it will kind of stick out like a sore thumb in your painting. So now I'm painting in the white areas of my painting. So I want to talk about this just for a minute, because over the years I've seen this quite a bit. And even though you're painting surface, canvas or board or cradled panel has been gessoed, and it's been gessoed white, it doesn't mean you don't have to use white paint. So if there's a white area and it has white gesso on it, you still have to use white paint on it. So gesso is a ground, and it's not quite exactly the same as regular paint. And so you still want to treat that surface as if it has not been painted yet. I've seen this a lot with my students. They'll try to leave the white of the page as the white. We still want to paint those areas with paint. So even though it's white because there was white gesso, we're still going to go in and paint that white. And so that's what I'm doing here. And sometimes I don't use the stark white. I'll add a little bit of either a very pale blue, and I'm talking about like a tiny amount, to make it a cool white, or a tiny amount of yellow to make it warmer. And I won't use it straight out of the tube, especially like an animal that has white on them. You sometimes would be warmer. It wouldn't be cooler. So you may want to put like a little bit, and I'm talking about you dip the brush in for 2 seconds, it just got a little dibble of like cadmium yellow or something. And I put a little bit too much white around the rim of the eye. It made it startling. So I had to fix it. But yeah, so you just want to warm it up a little bit when it's animal fur. I mean, even if you look at like a polar bear, it's not stark white. It's like kind of a creamy white. Okay. So I'm getting ready to do the dog's bed. And I decided I wanted to make an aqua color, so I used phthalo green, which is the green that's closest to blue. So it's a very cool green. And then I used manganese blue, which is a very cool blue, which is the blue, one of the blues that's on the cooler side, so it's very close to green. So I used, the a blue close to green and a green close to blue, and then I added lots of white to it to create a tint, and that is how I got this aqua color. And I'm going to be putting that down as a base layer. Okay, so that's the bottom layer, a very thin layer. I've added a lot of matte medium into it as well, so that it will go on really thin and it'll flow nicely when I'm painting around my dog. And so I won't have big globs of paint. That's the whole thing. When you're going around in the initial layers, you want thin layers so everything gets just a base coat and you're not putting on big globby layers, because everything you put down in the initial layers may get covered up partially or completely in some cases, and it just kind of shines through the top layers. So this is just initial layers. The first layers, you want to get good coverage, but it doesn't have to be a thick layer. It just has to be a thin, nice layer. If we were painting in oils, we would do the same thing. They call it fat over lean. So the first layers are lean in an oil painting. So even in an acrylic painting, I like to do the same thing. Make my first layers a thin layer using a little bit of medium. This matte medium increases flow, but it does not increase the drying time. Matte medium is very much the same composition as the paint, like we talked about before. I'm working my way around and I'm finishing up the aqua layer on the dog bed, and I'm working my way around the design, which is stars. And then I'm going to start painting those in with a light pink color. I'm using Liquitex Pale Pink, but I'm adding additional white to it to create a tint and make it even lighter than it already is. I kind of wanted it to be a pale pink, and I know that I embellish it with a little bit of a darker red color in the center as I go along. I'm doing a little extra sketching, and now I'm finishing up with the aqua blue and just getting all those little detailed places firmed up with my paintbrush. And I'm going to be getting into the pale pink and working on the stars next. They're going to stand out against the aqua just doing them in that color will be really interesting. And there's my pale pink, but I'm going to be mixing some white into it. And it's very rare for me to use something right out of the tube because I'm never satisfied with the way the stuff looks coming straight out of a tube. I always have to mix a little bit and change the colors a little bit. I very rarely use something as it is right out of the tube. Most of the time I'm mixing and adjusting the colors. And that's very common for most artists. Most people don't use things as they come out of the tube, straight out of the tube. I do create a lot of tints and shades using black. I also mix the colors together. I mix complements into colors to create neutrals very often. So there's a lot of ways that I mix my colors. To create new colors or take down the chroma. At this point, I wanted these to stand out just a little more, so I decided that I would add some little, even though I was initially thinking stars, I was like, well, maybe they could be more like a flower, and I put some red centers into the middle of these because I really felt like they needed an additional little pop. I didn't think that they were doing enough just sitting there with the pink against the aqua. So I came in with some, I pulled out some red, and then I decided I was going to add a little bit of pop of red in the middle of those. And I kind of like the way it looked better with the little pop of red in the centers of all these. And then I was like, well, maybe they'll look more flower-like, flower-like or something. And I kind of liked them better with a little pop of red in there. So that's what I decided, and I was happy with that decision. So this is where this little painting ended, or how I finished it. And what I did on the bottom is that I changed some of the colors. And you can see that I changed the colors here too. So what I did was that I ended up taking more of the phthalo and the manganese, and I mixed more of that together, and I didn't put quite as much white in it, and I made a darker version of the aqua, and I went over it, and then I just added, in some places I added more of the pure manganese blue. So I went over that initial layer and I just kind of built upon it. So you get a very dimensional feeling and a deeper, richer color happening. And so I did add a little bit to the layers on the dog, on the white parts and the brown parts. I also, because this has a lot of blue in places, I wanted to do a complementary pop, so I added the orange next to the blue, and it, so it would vibrate against each other. And I always like to have a dynamic color scheme, so I did add that intentionally. And then that's where I left it. And I think it came out pretty cute. I might want to explore this further in a bigger piece. So for a tiny painting, I think it came out pretty cute. Now, I'm not even sure how big this painting is, but I think, I'm going to say it's 6 by 8. So it's a tiny painting, 6 by 8. So it was really fun to do, and a lot of times I like doing these little ones because they're just really fun and they don't take very much time. And they're a good way to generate ideas. So I hope you enjoyed watching me do that, because it's a really good way to see the process in a short, small painting. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps my channel grow, and I really do appreciate it so much. Thanks for being here, and please come again soon.